Welcome to the CT Educator Podcast. I am your host, Karina Hogan. I am a registered CT technologist with 20 years of experience and knowledge. I help new CT technologists level up their CT training so that you can become a successful technologist. I'm also a mom and committed to sharing my knowledge and expertise to help you build your confidence, know the CT basics so that you can deliver quality patient care. So let's get into it. Hello, hello. Welcome back, technologists. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are doing good. So it's getting warmer. Summer is around the corner. And I believe my kids only have like less than 20 days of school left. Man, the end of the school year is here. Holy crap. And yeah, it's amazing because my kids are getting like older. And I have one of my daughters is going to be a senior next year in high school. So she will be graduating. So lucky mom I am, but I'm super proud of her. So very, very exciting as far as that. So I'm looking forward to all the summer stuff. So yeah, I'm getting myself summer ready. So little housekeeping. If you have listened to my previous episode, I have talked about the awesome coaching programs that I do offer. So make sure you guys check that out. So I have a couple of coaching programs. One is for brand new CT technologists who are new and are transitioning from x-ray to CT, or even technologists that are like nuclear medicine technologists need to know the CT part. Any students that are taking like CT programs, this applies to all of you. Anybody that needs to know the ins and outs of CT, this program is for you. So you get 6 months of coaching in my container. I give you a structured where I do not give you a bunch of bland courses and a bunch of self-paced stuff. No, we teach this live, I said. So that means you got to show up to the calls and you've got to be there to get all the knowledge and curriculum there is for this program. Okay. And also, I do, there's also going to be replays just in case you can't check it out live. So, and then I also have a personal private Slack community where you can come and get your questions answered, whether it's protocols, exams, confidence as a tech, any, protocol questions, whatever it is, you can come and get coached by me and you can even ask whatever questions you like. So make sure you guys check that out. I have thought about maybe putting a private podcast together, so I can include these trainings on the go so you can listen on the go. So we'll see how that works out. So it's kind of some things that I'm trying to make this program very simplified, very easy, and just structured so you can get all the knowledge and be prepared for that registry. So that is the whole goal for this program, is to get you ready for the registry, get you registered so you can be the go-to tech and you can go out there and make a shit ton of money. Okay, because there's lots of money to be made. Also, the second program that I offer is to those experienced technologists, that have 2 years or more that are interested in taking traveling assignments, because that is the hot shit now, is traveling. Okay. So I give you 90 days where we get you ready to go. Like, we'll get you prepped and ready. I'll give you some essential stuff that, as far as skill set, that you need to know, as far as, contracts, like what you should negotiate, how you should negotiate, and to do your research on these recruiting companies and these staffing agencies. So make sure that you guys check out the show notes for that. So for each program, this is very important. Each program, I'm only taking 10 students, 10 for each program. Okay. So once those spots fill up, that is it, guys. You guys have to wait for the next round. So this round is 10 students, 10 people is all I'm taking for each program. So once those doors close, so I am going to go ahead and give you founding members pricing for these programs. So both of them. So it's 40% off. That's founding members pricing. So I will give you 48 hours to make sure you secure your spot. After that, the price goes up and that'll be that. So if you join within the next 48 hours, I will throw in the Cardiac 101 course in for free. So you will have access to that. So, which that is not available currently right now in just the regular program that I currently host. So if you do join within the next 48 hours, you will get that course for free. But if you don't join in the next 48 hours, you'll lose that bonus and you lose the founding members pricing. So get your asses in there and sign up for the program. So second thing is if you're looking for ways to improve your physical and your mental health through fitness, my boyfriend is an awesome online fitness coach. He is taking 10 clients at the moment. So there is a form in the show notes that you can sign up and get on a consult call with him. He will structure your program exactly how to get the best results, and you will start to see results in 90 days. So I can personally attest to this, not only because he is my boyfriend, but I personally work out with him and I have better form and better physique than I did 20 years ago. So make sure you check out the show notes, come sign up with him, come work with him. He is fairly priced and reasonable, so check him out, okay? Now, let's get into today's episode because I'm super excited to talk about this episode. So we're continuing the conversation as far as being a traveling CT tech. So today I'm going to talk about is the transition from staff technologist to travel technologist and how to make that transition very easy for you, okay? Now, we see a lot of technologists nowadays that are wanting to transition from being a staff technologist to a traveling technologist because of the pay increase. Now, what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this firsthand where I work, is that the pay is getting very competitive with these traveling contracts. That matching pay when it comes to being a staff technologist versus a traveling technologist, the pay is not the same. The pay is like a lot higher. So this is becoming a peak interest and is making technologists really reevaluate as far as like, if I take this, I can get more pay. And plus, a lot of these staffing agencies are offering like full benefits, 401k, sick time, PTO. They offer stipends when it comes to housing and meals and, gas and mileage. So they have some pretty good incentives when it comes to that. So, but what I find is a lot of technologists are unsure where to start and how to approach this transition. Now, we know CT is a very complex modality, it's very overwhelming, especially if you're new, right? So, but what's overwhelming is where to start and how to approach this transition when you want to become a traveler from being a staff tech, right? So, usually what I do, and this is why I created the program that I do, is you really have to assess number one, your skills. Like, what are you good at as far as, your scanning abilities? Do you know this different operating systems out there? You have good IV skills. You know how to do cardiacs. You know how to do biopsies and those specialties, 3D post processing, because that is what you're going to find at a lot of these facilities in making sure you have these skills. Usually, when you take these assignments, there's certain criteria that they want out of the technologists that they're looking for as far as experience. So, here are some tips that I think would help as far as not only making the transition and then when you make the transition, okay? So when you are making the transition, make sure you do your homework when it comes to these recruiting agencies, okay? Because not all of them are alike. Okay. Make sure that you ask a lot of questions as far as pay, benefits, things that they offer. Usually the contracts are 13 weeks. Is it in a different state? Is it local? All the questions that you need to ask. And then you can do, some back and forth as far as pay. So you can say, oh, well, I'm a staff technologist. This is what I get paid. Like, how are they going to, give you a bump up in pay, or how much more pay are you going to get? Right. So depending on the level of experience and the clinical skills that you have is going to be a factor in that negotiation process. Also, the second thing that I can tell you is that if you take something out of state, I think ideally contracts that are out of state, usually when you have a family, it's very, very difficult to really take travel assignments, especially if you have a family and you have young kids. Now, what I do see is I do see a lot of technologists who are maybe their kids are grown and they're adults and they start to utilize that traveling option, right? Or you have technologists that don't have children, don't have a spouse or a partner or anything like that, and they take that opportunity to do that. So it really depends. Now, I'm not saying that somebody who has children can't do a traveling contract. Absolutely, you can. But you have to kind of weigh your options as far as if it's local or you're going to be picking up and moving a lot. Okay. So those are some of the factors that you have to decide as far as that. Now, I know me personally, I can't just pick up and move every 13 weeks. That's just not feasible, especially with my two young kids. Okay. So if it were me, I would do something locally and take a contract like that because there's lots of it, everywhere. So the other thing is that make sure your skill set and your education is up to par. because they expect you to know, what you're doing, especially when you sit down at that scanner and interact with that patient, set up that exam and actually push that button. So it's very important to know that as far as your skill set. Departments do have some kind of, training, assessment or like a checklist, especially if they're having a new contractor, a new employee that's coming onto the floor. So I know I have an 8-week checklist that is linked in the show notes as far as, it's a guide for techs to follow on what they need to know in like 8 weeks. Now, for a traveling tech, usually what they want you to know is if you know the protocols, policy and procedures, the systems, where to find supplies, contrast, syringes, if you have to go get your patients in the ER, if there's certain codes, and just how to operate the scanner that you are in front of and how to operate the power injector, just so you get familiar on, how they scan things, how much contrast they inject, and knowing all the protocols in the protocol book, that you're going to familiarize yourself with. I'm not saying you need to know all of them, but just some of the common stuff, and where to find something if you have a question. So, a lot of the things that I always tell travelers is make sure you take notes, because what you do at one facility, you may not do at the next, or something you might not do at one facility, you might do at the next facility. So, make sure you review protocol books and take lots of notes, okay? And ask lots of questions when you're unsure of something. Don't assume just because you have a ton of experience, and you've been a tech for a long time, that you know everything. Sometimes different places in different states, they do different things. So make sure that you ask a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions when I moved from Nevada to Illinois, because the way they do things in Illinois and the hospitals here are a lot different than Nevada. It's a lot different. So, of course, I had to ask a lot of questions, instead of assuming that what we did in one state, is going to tie over into the other when it's two completely different states. Okay. Now, what I always tell my travelers to wrap up this episode is take your time performing these exams and really just, adapting to what you're doing, because you may be a fast technologist and, and you're quick in getting the patient in and out. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get like the adequate quality of exam. So we always want to prioritize quality over quantity. Okay. So make sure you take your time so that you're doing things properly, so you don't have to repeat something, or the patient has to come back for like a repeat exam, or an exam that you missed, or things like that. So make sure you take your time to perform those exams, and make sure you learn the workflow of how they do things at the facility that you're at, and you're taking that contract where you're going to be there for 13 weeks. So those are just some of my tips, when you want to transition. And transitioning is not a hard thing, guys. It's very easy to do. Okay. You just have to make sure that you have the right steps, and do your homework and research and ask questions when you want to sign on to whichever recruiting agency that you pick. Just make sure you do your homework there, because there's lots of them out there, but they're not one and the same. So make sure you ask questions, or even ask, our radiology community is small. Ask people out there and say, hey, what is the best recruiting company? Who can I sign on that I will get, like competitive pay or good benefits or this and that, or then I'm going to secure more contracts, or whatever the case is. So it's always good to ask questions. Okay. So that is today's episode. Okay. So I hope that all this information was insightful. If you know somebody that could use this information, make sure you share the podcast episode. Make sure you subscribe, have them subscribe, and listen in on all this information. So also, coaching programs, if you're interested, links in the show notes. So come join, because you only got a very limited time to get founding members price. If you're interested in getting your physical and mental health in check with some online personal fitness coaching, make sure you sign up. My boyfriend's an excellent coach. So there's a link in the show notes where you can fill out a form and come get trained by him and be in the best physical shape in the next 90 days. All right. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Going to be doing Tech Tip Fridays every other Friday. Good information where I will be answering your questions and giving you some information live every other Friday. So make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram. So I post some really good educational stuff. So make sure you give me a follow there. Or if you have any questions, send me an email. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I will chat with you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you would like to share your CT experience, have an interesting story to share, or need help in your CT training, please email me your questions at contact@thecteducator.com. Follow along on Instagram at the CT Educator, also on Facebook at the CT Educator. Don't forget to like, share, leave a 5-star review, as this will help support the show and it'll reach all of you that need guidance. Thank you for listening and happy scanning.